All right, we're live. We're live on the tubes.
Oh shit!
Fucking up. All right, give me just 1 second. Start broadcasting. All right. Well, I guess it's not gonna let me go live on Instagram for some fucking reason. Those lizards at Instagram. Or actually, I think we're live on Instagram.
We better be.
Who knows, man?
You know what I'm saying?
Is this when we start giving out medical advice? Is right now?
Yeah. Let me restart over there before we get started. But yeah, we're live on YouTube. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Everybody, sit down, crisscross applesauce. We're about to read some verses of the Torah today. So please, everyone, open up your Torah to verse. I don't even know any verses on there.
Homie Romy, you're coming to us from Middle Earth there.
Yeah, bud.
Upside
We're
down.
keeping it hermetic around here.
As above, so below. There you go. All right, if this doesn't work for Instagram, then I don't know what will. Yeah, it's not working on Instagram. You know what? Fuck Instagram.
Fuck Facebook.
Yeah, fuck all that. Anyways, yeah, we're live on YouTube. Too bad for Instagram. Welcome. And today, this was supposed to be episode number 2, or is episode number 2 of the series that me and Thomas are doing, Paranoid American, the Occult Book Club. And what it's supposed to be is we're gonna be reading and deciphering and interpreting esoteric or occult pieces of literature, right, all throughout history. But then we ran into this whole thing about the copyright and all that, which kind of threw a wrench into the mix of things. So we don't know how we're going to continue from here on out, but it is what it is. Because you can't do public domain occult books. It doesn't fucking work that way. That's like a paradox.
Well, I've got a suggestion here because I think the real crux is that we don't want to just start reading verbatim passages out of copyrighted books that people are trying to sell or whatever. So if anything that we're gonna just straight up read verbatim, paragraphs, and then sit back and analyze it and pick it apart, that probably should be public domain. But it would kill me if the only books we can talk about were ones that were written over 100 years ago. So I think that for anything more modern, we just straight don't read passages directly out of it. We just kind of treat it as like a more formal book club of, hey, here's what I think about this book. Here's kind of what it was about. Here's the good things. Here's the bad things. Without getting into, let me go ahead and like read you this, this section out of this page. So that's kind of my suggestion going forward to deal with that.
Unless you were to hit them up directly and like say, hey, can I get permission for this? You can go that route too.
Like, have me on the show.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you're going that, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but how does it work if you have like the author can't give you access, right? Because the publisher is the one that gives you the copy, like they have the copyright, right?
Well, if they know what they're doing, they're in touch with the publisher, and they can, like if I've got a creator working under me and I'm publishing their work, they should be able to reach out to me and talk to me. But yeah, if it's like a Penguin book or Hugh Mifflin Harcourt style book, then maybe not.
Yeah, because I thought about that because I have a book that a guest gave to me, but if I don't get like written consent or something, I'm not.
We just don't read verbatim out of it, but we could still review it and talk about it. We just can't read out of it.
Yeah. Well, let's go around the room here and introduce ourselves. Obviously, I'm Juan at the Juan Podcast, patreon.com/the Juan Podcast, all the good stuff, all social medias. Paranoid American, you can plug your shit, then we'll go to Gabe, and then we'll leave Roman for last because it's Roman.
I'll make it quick. ParanoidAmerican.com, comics, games, coloring books, videos, all kinds of cool shit. And then Paranoid American on Instagram to kind of see the latest stuff I'm working on.
Nice. Yep. I'm Slick Dissident, also known as Gabriel. And that's my channel name on YouTube. I also run with the Weaving Spiders Welcome Crew. I'm about to jump on with those fellas. And as soon as we get done here and we weave all the way through the night, Saturdays into Sunday mornings. And you can also catch us on Wednesday evenings. We do our thing. And I am also a frequent guest over at the Interverse podcast with Chance Garton. So big up to everybody, and come on over, check us out. We got a lot on offer, a bunch of synchro mystic wizards.
Yep. That's truth.
It is Inception over here.
Yo, what up? It is Mercury, your boy, homie Romy, with the Rising from the Ashes podcast and alternative history and things like that. Juan and I have done a few things together. Gabe and I have done a few things together. It's my first time meeting you, sir, over here with Paranoid American, and I listened to the first book, Occult Book Club, and I was just like, yep, this guy's fucking awesome.
Well, thank you, guys.
Hell yeah. So it's a pleasure to be here, boys. I brought my Fulcanelli, which is alchemical and occult as fuck, so I'm stoked.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Paranoid American is our resident Freemason, so we do have an infiltration in the podcast. So that being,
you got a sound effect set up for me yet?
I do, bro.
Illuminati confirmed.
That's the Illuminati confirmed there, and we're actually live on Instagram, so I guess it's working. Yeah,
I had to call in some favors, but you're welcome.
There you go. You see these lizards, bro.
He called up his boy Mark.
I was like, yo, Tubal Cain, get it done.
So I don't know if Mark is going to be joining us or not, but he said he was. I think he might have a podcast. Who knows? Mark's super busy, but if he does, then I'll let him in. But yeah, so what do you got for us today? Because I was kind of worried. I'm like, today's a little bit different. We're going to be going around. And I was reading today some Helena Blavatsky stuff, some theosophy and all this stuff that I was reading about the astral plane and the astral light. And so, because I've been drawn to alchemy for a little bit now. So, I've been having some alchemical texts pop up and, just different reading materials. So I want to start with Roman, because Roman was the one that brought this idea up to get together. And do you still remember how to read, Roman? Are you okay, dude? You good to recite some verses from the Torah?
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you guys don't know, Fulcanelli is probably the last known great alchemist that we have. I mean, like, I'm kind of putting together some pieces, because there's like, so Fulcanelli is a pseudonym for Vulcan, the Roman fire god, or the Greek fire god, and then El, right? Obviously the Canaanite name for God itself. So it's the mystery fire, right? The God fire, the super fire, which is very alchemical. You guys talked a lot about the secret fire in your last episode, the initiate of the flame. It all ties in, all alchemists and occultists tie off of each other's work. That's what we do, and we're all in that same boat. It's a different picture now of how things are running and how things are societally, but we're all doing the same things. We are modern occultists in that fashion and in that sense. And I also thought it was cool that so the time period that Fulcanelli's from, he went missing in 1926, and this is his magnum opus, Mystery of the Cathedrals. And he writes as if he is a 16th, 17th century alchemist. Like, he's writing this work before the swath that came in to the alchemical scene. So like in the 18th century, there was all of this push for, chemistry and like mainstream science to be what we know today. And it's been a long way of pushing out the old alchemical ways, the hermetic ways, these viewpoints, right? And then they folded in this new age of science, which takes the spirit and the science and it separates it, because true alchemy is obviously spirit and science together. And anyways, it's fucking amazing. And
Was he a real guy though, or I'm sorry, was that his real name, or was that a pseudonym for like?
It's absolutely a pseudonym, and he's mysterious as fuck. There's no like he's either drawn to be Julian Champagne, which is like the guy who writes all the forewords for his book, but he's known as being a part of the Brothers of Heliopolis over in Europe. And so the Brothers of Heliopolis literally circle around Fulcanelli's work. And so it's like, it's kind of like the Shakespeare situation where you have this supposed group of people working on these writings. And, but, you know, they call Fulcanelli as one person. There's even a point, and this actually ties into the Jack Parsons shit, which is tripping me out. Because, you know, he was in the time period of Crowley, of Hitler, of Jack Parsons, of the pre-World War II. And World War II, it seems like they were trying to get rid of all the alchemists and occultists. And they banned occultism because that's what Hitler was fucking doing, is looking for the Aryan nation, the Atlantean nation, the last, you know, the fifth root race, right? Exactly. And so Fulcanelli, supposedly the American government and the Nazis were looking for him because he had like nuclear fission science, you know, like he was such a huge fucking chemist that they had these huge powers looking for him, but he remained mysterious and remained occultic and remained true to the true meaning of real alchemy.
That's crazy because the like those old alchemists that kind of had that knowledge, like that kind of goes back to this old ancient philosophy of atomic theory, which way predates, you know, like the modern scientific version of atomic theory.
Yeah, I was just listening today to the mythology of Orpheus and him.
Oh wow!
And him seeking the golden fleece, and it having to do with a place in Turkey where some mythological character fell off of a fell out of the sky. And I'm thinking, okay, the mythological character falling out of the sky, that's definitely a meteor. And the adventure to go and find the meteor and harvest the alloys from the meteor has been, that myth is recreated in other places and times when meteors fall out of the sky. But the
shout out to NASA.
Right. It's about to,
Jack Parsons.
Yeah, about to happen. ISS, the International Space Station, is gematria for 911.
911.
The I is a 9. The S is a 19, reduces down to a 1. And you do it twice, you get a 9 and a 1-1.
Look at Thomas's face. He hates numerology.
Yeah, it's a 911 in the ISS. So anyways, the story of the Golden Fleece, there was an alleged dragon protecting it. Anybody who approached it would get scorched by the dragon.
That was Elon Musk's rocket name, right? Dragon X or something like that was one of the rocket's names.
Interesting, because I'm thinking if the Golden Fleece was a fallen meteor, the dragon was the radiation emanating off of the meteor. And that's why every motherfucker who tried to get near it got cooked.
This is some Ark of the Covenant style, Indiana Jones.
Well, yeah, that's another thing too, right? Because you had these pharaohs. I forgot which pharaoh it was that had this dagger that was supposedly made out of meteorite, if I'm not mistaken, out of this crazy rock that they didn't know. And it reminds me of King Arthur's sword, Excalibur. That was this sword that had these magical powers that, you know, and then again to slay the dragon, the it being the dark self, the monad being the sword.
Yeah.
So
The story of the Philosopher's Stone.
Yes. But it's funny. Thomas brought up the Art of the Covenant, because what is it that they do in all these shows? What's it called? Ancient Aliens. What is it that they talk about? How it's got alien technology and it's all this nuclear. Because you see it in the Bhagavad Gita and the Mahabharata, right? It's always this faction of two families fighting the Anunnaki, right? The two brothers, Enki and Enlil, and they have these cosmic wars, and there's just a Zeus with his lightning bolt. You have all these things in ancient scripture that points to these alien beings perhaps having some sort of nuclear technology. Now, if it's true or not, because again, I mean, it's all a narrative fallacy where we need this story and we have to. It's also like nationalism, like my place is better and I have these gods, so you need to one up it and just be you know what I mean?
It's like these big illustrious stories, and you imagine that like there's these guys running around with like these armors made out of gold, but in reality it was like a handful of like ragtag guys dragging this radioactive battery through the desert that's giving them like cancer. They're losing their hair. You know, they've got boils all over the place, but you know, books written about them in the future, you know, are very generous to what they look like and everything else.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's
So
hilarious.
Roman, continue with this fellow. That's very interesting.
Fulcanelli, he's fucking crazy. So there's this there's not a lot of podcasts with when you want to listen to like audio about Fulcanelli, like there's a lot of people in other countries talk about his book, but there's only a couple like actual podcasts that I could find when I was trying to do some more research and digging. But one guy, Ryan Singer, who's got a pretty sweet show, I think it's called Me and the Paranormal You. And he did an episode 4 years ago thinking that connecting Francis Bacon to Fulcanelli, saying that Fulcanelli was actually Francis Bacon. And he goes down a deep ass Francis Bacon rabbit hole.
He gets all the credit, right?
Yeah, he does get all the credit because I mean, right? They talk about William Shakespeare not being this elaborate, not the brightest tool in the shed, and writing all these elaborate plays and scripts.
His family came from like glove makers or something like that, where he wasn't necessarily an idiot, but he didn't have the classical education.
Glove makers?
From.
Did you say glove?
I believe, if I'm not misquoting something, I believe his
Wow.
family came from like glove making.
Okay.
Glove? What?
That's
Okay,
cultic
I
as
got
fuck.
you. I got you guys. So the glove is the symbol of the of karmic absolution. It's the symbol of the hidden hand. It is the symbol of influencing others without touching them. And so for his family to come from a lineage of glove makers,
It's quite apropos, right?
right, is to say those who were familiar with the craft.
I knew it sounded occultic as fuck.
Yeah, so that's, fabricators. He came from a lineage of fabricators, is kind of what that's saying. And that's Thanos. Thanos puts on that glove, snaps his hand, and it's the Aristotelian touchless death. He just,
it would have been much better in an English class if it were Thanos instead of fucking Romeo and Juliet and Hamlet, though. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, because the 10 Commandments, right? You have 5 and 5. You have 5 fingers on this hand, 5 in this. And when they come together, you have the 2 tablets that need to come together. Shout out to Manly P. Hall. That put me onto that shit. Daddy
That's
Manly
hype.
P. Hall. Yeah, the 5 and 5. And it's got to do with Freemasonry. Back me up here, Thomas. Back me up, brother. The Freemasons.
But there were 20 commandments, right? And that was the meaning of the 2 tablets was 20, and then one of them broke, and then we just had the 10 left over.
Wait, was it 10 or
Like
20?
the
Is that
Liberty
Mandela
Bell.
effect? No. There was 10 commandments, Thomas. Don't do that, bro.
That's the only ones that he came back down with.
I heard,
He
I heard
dropped
that
the first 10.
that's interesting because I have heard that he came with 10. Then before he could even show them to the Israelites, they were already breaking the law. So he had to crush them in anger and go make a whole nother 10.
Oh.
But that's it. Either way, he did deal with 20. He was ultimately dealing with 20. It's very mathematical, no doubt.
Interesting.
One more point on the gloves. I should point out that in Italian, the word gauntlet, it means a monopoly. So
Really? Gauntlet?
So a gauntlet is a mano is hand, and poli is to manipulate or to pull the strings. So a monopoly is a gauntlet, and that's what I call Thanos. I've nicknamed Thanos and Thanos Fauci.
Anthenos.
And Thanos Fauci. And all of those gems on his stone, each stone is just a president that Thanos Fauci had under his thumb. And eventually he just snaps his finger and you got your pandemic because he's got a monopoly on all of the medical industry.
What the fuck?
Well, what can you say that again, Gabe? What Anthony's?
And Thanos Fauci. He's got 5 presidents under his thumb. And he just snaps his finger and the pandemic comes true. He gets all his wishes just in one little snap of the finger.
But where has Homeboy been all this time? Right now, we haven't really seen him all that much lately. Did the clone go down, or did the MK Ultra wear off a little bit?
Yeah, they've rotated the stage.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. Yeah, they definitely fucking are downplaying this, and I don't know. I'm please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt. Sorry.
Well, one thing that we brought up a while back is a good word for us to consider with Fulcanelli is EUhemism. EUHEMISIM. EUhemism is these characters throughout history who accumulate like 90% mythology that is just based on maybe 10% reality. And EUhemism is a really good way to explain that. These guys are way more, there's more attributed to them than any one person could achieve in a lifetime, you know?
Yeah.
And Shakespeare is a good example. Ben Franklin, you know, he just inherited his brother's printing press. You know, his brother did all that work and he gets all the credit, you know? So,
Well, and he was a guy that was fascinated by a lot of things. So he would like go overseas and see some real cool shit and bring it back to the States and show everyone here, and just automatically got attribution for like being the inventor of so many things, when really he was just like the guy that kind of brought it here and showed it off, you know?
You got it. Yep.
You said Ben Franklin was that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Ben Franklin.
I mean, all these guys were lizards, weren't they? I mean, at the end of the day.
I'm inclined to think so. You know, Ben Franklin, the name Benjamin Franklin has a literal translation to good brother. Bien hermano is a good brother. And then the line of Franks, Frank line, is the bloodline, Frankish bloodline. And I think that ties him into Merovingians in a real weird way. Just
Well, you threw his links to Philadelphia in there, and you got the city of brotherly love on top of all that, right?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't, and then King Arthur was, Dan and I were just talking about this. King Arthur was supposedly had been killed in Frankfurt, Alabama or something, which is like Fort of the Franks. So that's interesting to hear, like Frank line, Frankfort, like these Frankish. Yeah. Wow. Cause dude, there's some like the Franks, like that's some deep bloodline right there. Like that goes way back.
Yes, there is something really weird going on, and something really weird going on with that Frankish bloodline, because they boast that their patriarch and matriarchal lines do not have a divine right to rule. Their granddaddy did not get down with some heavenly angelic being. That does not give them the right to rule, but they do admit that their grandma's grandma got down with the sea monster.
Neptune?
Yeah, and that is a very defining line for me. So the Franks were in place. They were German and French, and it was the Anglo-Saxons who came along. And there's a cultural dividing line in history there, where the Anglo-Saxons were like, we got kings who got down with Zeus and got down with these angelic beings from above. And the Franks were like, no, fuck that. Our grandma got down with the sea monsters. So there's this strange dichotomy between the Franks and the Anglo-Saxons in their claim to whatever supernatural power.
All demigods are better than your demigods. Oh, sorry, Thomas.
Right?
Well, there's got to be something in there with comparing the elements of like air and water, for example.
Yes.
Ah, that's beautiful. Yeah,
Yes.
I can dig that.
Someone in the chat said, why Jesus was a carpenter. Carpenter. You have anything on that, Gabe?
Yeah. I call Jesus Christ the the core pointing, care painting carpenter. Wax on, wax off.
Doesn't he have a picture like that where he's like pointing at himself at the heart and then like doing some shit like that?
Togetherness. Yeah. Jesus is an interesting lineage.
Don't say.
He's an accumulation of mythology. You know, everybody who gets a hold of him dresses him up.
He's like another Francis Bacon, essentially, just goes back a little bit longer.
You got
I
it.
wanted to
Fucking
throw this
A.
out there too, especially talking about him as a carpenter. There's a book that I don't have memorized yet. It's called Jesus Christ, Son of God, but it's S-U-N of God. And
Yep.
it breaks down almost every parable that Jesus is kind of like known for, that everyone likes to throw out. But it breaks it out as like these mathematical formulas, and in a way that these ancients were kind of baking in these algorithms and these formulas to kind of pass down. So there was, I'm going to misquote all of this, so don't take any of like the literal, but there was one like the feeding of the fish was actually a way of showing how you could take a circle and split it in two and get a Vesica Pisces and then split that in two and eventually become this kind of like flower of life. But all of this was mathematical formulas spelt out through the parables. And there was a couple in there specifically about him being a carpenter.
Yeah.
Damn, that's a sick book. What is that called again?
It's called Jesus Christ, Son of God, but Son is S-U-N.
Yup,
Dude,
I'm gonna
that's-
get
It's
that.
all about astrology and geometry, and
Well,
it gets into math that goes way over my head.
you have Jesus becoming the son and the 12 disciples becoming the 12 signs of the zodiac. So I've heard that before. And it's funny you mentioned
Ophiuchus.
Yeah, exactly, because it's Christ consciousness. And it's funny you mentioned that, Thomas, because right, we're talking about mathematics, the Platonic solids and all these things. There's a story that relates these core. So in the book Aneclipsis by Gottfried Higgins, I encourage people to check it out. It's this guy supposedly did 10 hours of research for 20 years in order to complete this book. Okay, 10 hours of research a day for 20 years.
So you just spread that 10 hours out over 20 years. That would be dope, man.
That's my kind of
fucking
work.
Suck. So 10 hours a day for 20 years, this guy supposedly, allegedly, and he makes these correlations between all of the mythological gods, right? These people. And Pythagoras is one of the people that he relates to this Jesus Christ story. It was an immaculate conception. The oracle told the dad, "Hey, you can't have sex with the mom while she's in this pregnancy. All these things. Your son is going to be destined to be this crazy Messiah that's supposed to bring wisdom to a bunch of people." And then there's a story of Pythagoras when he's landing in, I forgot the name of the island. Anyways, he's landing in the geez, I forgot the name. And he sees some fishermen and he tells them, "Hey, you have X amount of fish in your net." And I forgot the number of fish, but
153.
I don't know if it was 153 in this story, Gabe, but again, for Jesus Christ, it was the same thing. You guys have X amount of fish in your net. And they're like, "Oh, this guy's Chris Angel or something," And they're bringing up the fish like, "Oh my God, he was right." So again, these correlations, but I think it all goes back down to the sacred geometry.
Well, and I want to throw a quick little defense out for some gematria as well, because like in that book they do a really good way of describing how like the letters in the ancient scripts for Hermes and Thoth and Jesus, once you add all the letters up, they essentially show that they were all talking about the exact same person, and it's not because of this like anglicized way of passing the torch. It's literally because these names are encoded to these numbers that fit into these formulas that are the same formulas just told in different contexts.
It's a Rosicrucian, right? That's the whole thing with, again, Francis Bacon about the King James Version of the Bible. You have Rene Descartes that wrote these Rosicrucian type things that Leibniz, Gottfried Leibniz, I think that was his name, or Wilhelm, the guy who invented binary code, the ones and zeros in your computer. He was obsessed.
And you got Christian Rosenkreuz, which is essentially their amalgamation of this like fictional character that embodies all of their teachings. It's like this guy that doesn't actually exist, Christian Rosenkreuz, who's accredited to a lot of the Rosicrucian teachings.
Really? So
Yeah,
divine, perhaps?
You just kind of like throw him author credit as a way of saying like this is a work from the full embodiment of this whole movement.
Well, how many movements haven't been born out of that? Just some guy said, right? Some pseudonym. that some guy said
I didn't say
something.
that. That was that other guy that said that, man. burn that dude at the stake.
What about Jesus the Carpenter thing? Going back on that, kind of thinking of like like masonry or some sort of secret society as like having this job and this title as a builder.
The
Kind of
architect,
relating
right?
to that. Yeah,
The Freemasons
yeah, exactly.
with the little with the what is it, the compass and the angle, whatever it's called, or is it a book?
The square and compass, yeah.
The square. I'm not a Freemason. Thomas hasn't initiated me yet, so I'm not a Freemason yet. But yeah, again, you're absolutely right, Roman. I never really connected that word. Again, the symbolism. It's all, dude. And I hate that I've gotten to the point in my life where, and I don't want to think that everything is Illuminati confirmed, because I don't think everything is Illuminati confirmed. Okay.
Yeah, you do.
Shit.
You do.
Yeah.
If you look deep enough,
I think we're all there.
It is. If you look deep enough, it is, though. That's the problem, that you start seeing all this occult symbolism in these things. Like, my wife today sent me this Disney movie. Shout out to Disney. And that supposedly people are freaking out. It's a new movie that came out, that in the movie it's about a cartoon, I think it's Red Fox or something like that. And it talks about sex. Was it a red panda?
I mean, so, yeah.
Anyways, it talks about sex to kids, bro. Like, to kids, and for people who just turn things on for their kids and then just let them do their thing. So it's Disney and Pixar's Turning Red. So
oh my god,
this is nothing
That's
new,
what it's
though,
fucking
man, I
called?
remember what was the Disney cartoon with like the little mice that would like run around? It was like the
Ratatouille?
Adventurers or something. No, way
no.
before
Shit.
Tom and Jerry?
Fievel.
but there was like
No.
a clip of like actual
Fievel.
No, way before Fievel too, dude. It was a Disney movie that one of the animators was disgruntled and snuck in like an actual, picture of like a woman's bare breasts in a kids movie.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there was like the Aladdin, there was the the
Lion
Sex
King.
in the Sky and Lion King. Yeah, it's almost like every Disney movie.
Little Mermaid.
someone's managed to sneak something in there. Yeah, what was
Yo,
Aladdin was
also-
they had a quote that said like all teenagers take off your clothes, that was like spoken really quickly.
And said by Robin fucking Williams, who thus has committed suicide due to depression, right? Because that was his line.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say about Disney. Well, I mean, that was his character. I'm not sure if they had Robin Williams say that, but it was the character of the genie, because when he turned into a fly, he like whispers it in his ear. I went on a bit, dude. I'm a big. I got fucking real ramped up on the Disney shit. I don't know a lot about it, but like when I found out about that, like I was just like, oh my god. And also, Walt fucking Disney is, I mean, a master occultist, even though he has no ties. People can't fucking find ties. I'm like, listen up, dude.
There's plenty of
That's
there's plenty of pictures of him and Desmoulins, and he's got like Mickey Mouse and Desmoulins. So there's very strong ties that are documented.
I want to
Mouse
say
is a
too
wizard.
about the gloves. Exactly, the gloves is a huge thing in the Mickey Mouse thing. We're talking about that earlier. I think that it's all alchemy, sex magic, Crowleyism, like Also,
this is a Christian podcast. You can't talk about sex on here. Just put it in.
Illuminati
Dude.
confirmed.
The Disney shit goes so deep. And then
goes
also the fucking original Disneyland was built on a 33rd parallel.
Yep.
You know what, the 33 Club?
Yeah.
The secret Disney
At fucking
secret
Disneyland.
society for like the big ballers that get to go to the secret VIP lounges.
Yep. So 33rd degree parallel lines up with Jerusalem. A lot of people miss that one. So
Oh shit.
Yep, 30 degrees lines up with Giza, 33 lines up with Jerusalem, and 41 and change will get you the Vatican.
Those are good guys, though, Gabe. The Vatican, they're awesome people. I've heard. I've heard
Yeah,
that
no,
they do
great.
some great things.
They make
The
good
Pope is
pasta.
dope.
Yep. And Juan, guess who else the Vatican lines up with? Rhode Island.
Really? With HP Lovecraft. Yeah, and you sent me some stuff. I don't know if you want to get into that later about the whole Mercury and all this stuff. I know you go.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, we can get into that. And it kind of does brush into that, gematria, and the fact that there are, like you were saying, Thomas, there that there are numeric codes underneath our words. You know, I think of the moment when Neo had the apotheosis moment, and he is resurrected, and he looks down the hallway, and he's seeing numbers on all the walls, and those numbers are flowing in both directions. They're going up and down, and that's called bidirectional text. It's Aramaic, goes in both directions. You read to the end of the line, you drop down, and you read backwards. Drop down, read forwards. Drop down.
Oh.
That's called bostrophodon, as the ox plows. But it's also a metaphor for reading the letters and also reading the numeric code underneath those letters.
That's awesome. I've never heard any of that before. I love that.
Why do we read manga backwards? Does that have to do? Are we summoning some sort of demon when we're reading manga backwards?
Well, I got an answer. I do have an answer. So the Tower of Babel was in the Middle East. And so the Tower of Babel is the location when all language, we were all of one tongue. But the Tower of Babel fell in two directions. And so the languages from the Far East, they read from left to right, or from right to left. In languages of the East, we read from left to right. So we are building the Tower of Babel back up with our language coming back to that center point.
So it's interesting that you said the Matrix thing, because I've been balls deep in some Plato and the innate ideas and the
Play-Doh, like the toys?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, Plato too.
Just making cast models over here.
Yeah.
You know you're not supposed to eat it. It's not toxic, but you're still not supposed to eat it.
So I've been reading and studying up on the theory of forms. And right, we have Plato, who was inspired by Pythagoras. You have the Neoplatonists and the Platonic movement and all this stuff that paved the way for Christianity and the Gnostics and all these people. And it was interesting that Plato, at first, when he started, he was against the numbers because he believed that numbers would detach you from reality itself in a way. But then it's weird because when he flipped towards the end, it was more Pythagorean in nature, and the Neoplatonists ran with it because they were inspired by Daddy Pythagoras at the beginning. And it makes me think of Neo, and then the cave allegory where they're in watching these shadows at the back end of that cave, and then that ascension of this person, you, the one, going up out of the cave into the light. Yeah. Is, it's an allegory. So when you go out, whoever stayed in the cave is humanity, who doesn't want to accept the fact they only accept what's being presented to them, what's being fed to them, right? In the Matrix, they're in the pod. And when they come out, that's the ascension up towards. And then it made me think of that, where we use mathematics everywhere. Yeah. It's in everything. But again,
your body's doing it. Like you might not be actively doing it, but at all times your senses are doing math.
Yep.
That's fucked.
Yeah, I love this topic, man. This is a really great topic. So the Pythagoreans had that phrase, panta arithmos, and that is that all is number. Mm-hmm. And this is we are really going to touch the matrix here with this topic.
The tip.
Yeah, we're going to just get right in and do some foreplay on the matrix right here. So
dip our Plato cast.
Yeah, man. Yep, we're going to build the tower. So Plato is Lato means happy, and P is the phallus, the palace, the tower. So to make the P happy is to erect a tall mud, the Talmud, to make a construct we can all see and agree upon. So we are going to be playing with some the world of forms for sure with this.
So every time I get an erection, I'm summoning something of some sorts?
Yep. We're going to summon the spirit. We're going to call in the spirit tonight.
Giggity.
So life force energy, man.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. So I believe that, the cave is the construct of the language and the metrics that we all agree to operate under. You know, 12 inches is a foot, 12 months is a year, 12 hours is a day. You know, there's a lot of agreed.
Get out of here with your imperialist measurements.
Exactly. Yes. And a very harsh reality for a lot of people is to realize this is coming out of the cave, is to realize that you have agreed to be the subject of colonialized thinking. And colonialized thinking is every aspect of indoctrination that we've gone through. And so we are subjugated. We're the subject of the the empire. And so that's a harsh reality. That's really hard for people to even consider, that their own literacy is part of the snare, their own language and their own agreeing and going along with, okay, 12 months, sure, let's call 12 months a year. Well, to some people, that is high blasphemy because you're forgetting about the 13-month lunar calendar. And
I was going to say before we were talking about the 12 zodiacs, but now we're forgetting about the 13th zodiac, which is the water bearer or the serpent bearer.
Right on. Yes. So to a large degree, when we, compromise and go along with the metrics of the matrix, we are making ourselves subject to that paradigm of thought. And so that's been a real thing for me in my life. I'm a martial artist, a long time martial artist, and I study you guys have probably heard of capoeira, breakdance fighting.
It's a cool story, dude. The story of capoeira is beautiful.
It's
actually quite suppressed, but also
right
out of suppression blooms.
And that was my path out of the matrix, is realizing that, wait a second, we have squashed so many beautiful rituals and so many beautiful cultures in the name of seeing the world from the same perspective. And it's just a very powerful thing to unprogram yourself and step back and be like, maybe I don't agree with these paradigms and these forms of mental capture.
This is a really perfect segue for the book that I ended up reading for our podcast. If you don't mind, I'd like to jump in because it's right on this exact. Because as I was reading it, and it's kind of funny because the book itself is La Sorcerie, the Witch of the Middle Ages, and it's kind of a modern, and when I say modern, I think 1890s take on what kind of happened with witchcraft and occultism in the Middle Ages. But my takeaway through reading it was kind of what you're describing here, Gabe, is how this idea of like standardizing everything and getting everyone on the same page so that everyone was this like monk class that you could just kind of interchangeably, you guys go do this, you guys go do this. These like spiritual warriors almost that were like, your office jockeys. That was my takeaway. So
you're welcome, Thomas.
So
who put you on? Who put you on?
Let me jump. And actually, you put me onto this. I can't remember what the context was, but you said something that I didn't believe, and I just got engrossed in reading. Like
it was the Black Sabbath. I was looking up the Black Sabbath stuff, and it's in there too. So that's right.
Why. And funny enough, man, this comes all around to Francis Bacon again because I've got this quote that I'm gonna read out, and I think
everybody loves bacon.
Yeah, everyone loves bacon. And I think, like most things, Francis Bacon, this might be falsely attributed to him. You guys might have heard this before, but it's called The Story of the Horse's Teeth. And I'm going to try to read it in its original kind of quote, which I think was like 1906. So, and it says, "In the year of our Lord, 1432, there arose a grievous quarrel among the brethren over the number of teeth in the mouth of a horse. For 13 days, disputation raged without ceasing. All the ancient books and chronicles were fetched. Wonderful and ponderous erudition, such as was never heard before in this region, was made manifest. At the beginning of the 14th day, a youthful friar of goodly bearing asked his learned superiors for permission to add just the word, a straightway, a wonderment, whose deep wisdom he sore vexed. He beseeched them to unbend in a manner of course unheard of, so that he may look into the open mouth of this horse, find the answer in their questionings by essentially counting the fucking teeth in the horse's mouth."
It's divination,
So he wants to just count the teeth in the mouth, but all of these, sort of learned guys around them. They want to debate about the philosophical answer of how many teeth are in the mouth. So at this, it says, their dignity being grievously hurt, they waxed in exceeding wrath, joining in a mighty uproar, they flew upon him and smote him hip and thigh, and cast him out forthwith. For said they, surely Satan had tempted this bold neophyte to declare unholy and unheard of ways of finding the truth, contrary to all the teachings of the fathers. And it goes on and on and on. But the concept here is that, you know, they've got these like the learned professors and the doctors, and they're all debating about this. And this guy walks into the room. He's like, "Hey, does anyone want to just like open up the horse's mouth and just fucking count the teeth, and maybe we can call this a day?" And you know, they hate him for it, and they kick him out, and they go back to sort of debating over this. But the whole concept here was that this standardization and just like all of these expert opinions, you can kind of get drowned in it, and you lose the actual knowledge that you're seeking after. If you really wanted to just know how many teeth are in the horse's mouth, you know, sometimes it just takes an ignorant fool to just be like, "Hey, let's go and count it." So
Is that where the term "from the horse's mouth" comes from?
Well, yeah, it's because you don't want to don't look a gift horse in the mouth, right? Or
Well, that's got to do with Plato too, and Plato's The Republic, where he wanted these philosophers to rule society. Like they wanted certain people to rule society. It was why the philosopher? Oh, because they're the most wise, they're the most unbiased, right? But then again,
philosopher king, right?
The philosopher kings. But who determines who? Right? It's like this whole narrative. What's essential and what's not essential? Who is going to give you the right to rule over another people?
Who's got the most traffic on TikTok right now?
Exactly.
Juan.
So that's crazy because Pythagoras supposedly, allegedly practiced divination. They saw the entrails of an animal on the ground. They'd be like, "Oh, this is." They would look at the flight of birds. They would look at the clouds and all this shit, and they could tell Pythagoras was related to be able to tell the future. I mean, that's what he was deified.
Earlier this week, that's called, I think, green language. When you think that you can sort of, you know, read a message through this kind of like surreal means, you know, language of the birds, things like that. I think that's called green language.
You
Language
got
of
it.
birds.
Green language is my jam.
Yeah, that's Gabe's specialty. This is faute.
Yeah, man. Yep, my bread and butter. Also called twilight language by some, and I love it because it is our language is the artifacts of the ancestors. You know, in these, I really love to find out the definition of words in other languages, and like they will seem as though they're not related, but if you get a little cultural context, they are deeply related. Like you guys will dig this. How is it, and in what way is the word book, when you reverse it, it's cube. The book is the cube, and the shape of a book is cube.
Oh, shit.
It's a cube.
You fuck. You motherfucker.
This
Illuminati confirmed. What the
buddy,
fuck?
yeah. And this is a good, I can tie this back into what we're talking about, how like the difference between reality and a contrived standard of reality that is agreed upon. So the word bak in Finnish, it means a goat. And in German, it means a river. A bak is a river. And when you take goat and river, you combine them, you end up with the river goat, which is the sign of Capricorn, which is at the bottom of the zodiac. But this is where it gets really neat. Books were made from goat skin. And I do believe that the flow of information, the source of knowledge is from the realm of the forms.
Mm-hmm.
And it is literacy that gives you access to the realm of the forms. And so by learning how to read, you learn how to enter into the stream of consciousness. And it is through, it was through these goat-skinned tomes that we call books that gave you access to the stream of consciousness. And so now you guys see all the ingredients of how a book is a cube, a book is a goat, a book is a stream. and it all starts to make sense. But you got to take a little bit from the Finnish, and you got to take a little from the German, and you even got a little Kabbalah, the Kabbalah of the cube, you know, and you put it all together cross-culturally, and it's just amazing. And that's a real nice example of Twilight speech, where you take it from other cultures.
Allah.
Yeah, it's all the things that have ever been written.
Well, so you know, Plato, right, with the theory of forms, he thought that he said that he believed that everything was already known. You just needed to be able to, like how you said, tap into that to unlock it. So we know everything that we know. And I think, was it Socrates or something, where he's like, I'm going to tell this guy who's never heard of some geometric patterns, and then he'd be like, right, it's this, and the guy didn't know shit about it, and he's like, yeah, it's that, because Plato would always do that shit, right, to make himself like be like right about everything. So again, that doesn't prove that everyone knows everything, but where the fuck do thoughts even come from? They just pop into your head. I got the craziest idea, Thomas. Let's do this for this show. Well, where the fuck did that come from? You know what I mean? So these guys were talking about this in the year 500, 600, whatever it was back then. They were thinking about where thoughts came from and how they developed and all this shit. It's fucking wild, man.
Yeah, man.
Dude, I 100% am on board with the collective consciousness and us being able to basically, like, especially in the podcast realm, especially in our realm of podcasts of like this alternative media, because it's just like one of us has an idea over here, and the next thing you know, when you go and talk to your boy, like, dude, I was just fucking thinking about that and gonna read in on that, you know, like, what the fuck? And it's like, I see it, and it's beautiful. It is so beautiful. I'm fucking grateful, dude. Like the podcasting and like this like step of awakening has really like changed a lot of my life and given me a lot more beautiful direction. You know, that I want to strive for, because it's like, honestly, I felt like a fucking real big weirdo like everywhere I went, because I was just so fucking crazy. And then you come here and you're like, wow, there's all, and it's like occult was the thing that I always wanted to study. I didn't realize it, that like was always going to be, you know, occult. And then here we are. It's like, dude, this shit fucking, just like yoga, started doing yoga, went to my first hot yoga class, changed my fucking life. And now I go fucking 2 to 3 times a week, because yoga and occult are the only things that make me happy.
Nice, man. Yeah, you know, you and I were tapping in on something. I think, was that last night, where you were on my channel talking about 100 years, the 100-year loop.
Dude,
You know,
I can't. I didn't even want to bring that shit up, because it's mind sweltering, man.
Yeah. And then, but you had not seen the video I had put out the night before, was about 100 years in the speech that Morpheus gives to Zion in the Matrix.
Oh, shit.
I remember, for 100 years we have fought these machines, and after 100 years I remember that which matters most. We are still here. And it was
beautiful interpret. That was beautiful, Gabe. I just
Yeah,
want to
man.
tell you.
That was good.
We're gonna need some remixes on that. Someone needs to on that and everything.
I'm gonna clip that shit.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw this out here too, Juan, because you were mentioning how Plato was kind of this stickler.
It was a troll
on his whole form. He was a troll. He was kind of like the worst asshole teacher that you ever had. Not just because he was like, so sure of himself and so like, illustrious, but the dude legit was smart. So it's like, you couldn't just write it off as like he was being some asshole. But my favorite guy in looking back in history in that same time is Diogenes the Cynic. And Diogenes, there's this really fun anecdote. I'm going to butcher this one as always. But Plato was all proud of himself, and he kind of got like all these commendations from, all the teachers and all the professors and philosophers, because he came up with this quote of saying that that man was a featherless biped, and everyone was like, oh my God, this was like the most graceful, elegant way of describing humankind, featherless biped. Why didn't we think of that? And Diogenes went and found a rooster and plucked all the feathers and brought it to school and said, look, everyone, there's Plato's, featherless biped. There's a man according to Plato. So like he kind of had those trolls in school that were like calling him on his shit. The fact that he's got the Republic under his belt and all of Western philosophy,
Yeah.
people gloss over and give him this like godly status as if everything he did was correct. But I always like thinking of Diogenes as like, man, there was that class clown that was like, hey teacher, you're wrong about this one thing, but those kind of things get glossed over.
Hey,
I
Thomas,
love
can
that.
you unplug and plug your mic back in? I think we're getting some sort of interference there.
Let me read you guys this crazy fucking story that I was kind of touching on about Fulcanelli earlier about this meeting between him and Jacques Bergier, and a supposed meeting behind this, man who's never been revealed as Fulcanelli. Let me read this story because it's fucking really cool. The meeting between Jacques Bergier and Fulcanelli reportedly occurred during June 1937 in the laboratory of the Gas Board in Paris. According to Neil Powell, the following is a translation of an original verbatim transcript of the rendezvous. You're on the brink of success, as indeed are several others of our scientists today. Please allow me. Be very, very careful. I warn you. The liberation of nuclear power is easier than you think, and the radioactivity artificially produced can poison the atmosphere of our planet in a very short time, a few years. Moreover, atomic explosives can be produced from a few grains of metal powerful enough to destroy whole cities. And I'm telling you this for a fact. The alchemists have known it for a very long time. I shall not attempt to prove to you what I am going to say, but I ask you to repeat it to Mr. Hell Bronner. Certain geometrical arrangements of highly purified materials are enough to release atomic forces without having recourse to either electricity or vacuum techniques. The secret of alchemy is this. There is a way of manipulating matter and energy so as to produce what modern scientists call a field of force. The field acts on the observer and puts him in a privileged position vis-a-vis the universe. From this position, he has access to the realities which are ordinarily hidden from us by time and space, matter and energy. This is what we call the great work.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice.
So, that's what year was that book written in, Roman?
This was released in 1922. Fulcanelli went missing in 1926. That rendezvous was apparently in 1937. So, like in the middle of the Great Wars, which, like I was saying, it lies back into the Jack Parsons, because Jack Parsons was working specifically with the American military, and the American military thought he was working for the Nazis because he was a follower of Crowley. And so it's like you have all these alchemists. I mean, Jack Parsons was a fucking rocket scientist, dude. It's alchemy, bro, And so he was a master of the chemicals. Like that's Jack Parsons' whole thing. He can make fire out of thin air, throwing up one chemical. And so like, obviously Hitler, when you really dive into that story, you're like, Jesus Christ, these guys were so occult. These guys were master conspiracy theorists, like, Hollow Earth, alchemy, Jesus, Jesus bloodlines, aliens, fucking Aryan Nation, Atlantis.
They were the ones that were putting this into practice at a global scale as well, not just in books, in their dorm rooms at night. They were going and enacting this on the rest of the world.
Yeah,
you
dude.
You sound a little better, Thomas.
That sounds great. Yeah, there was a little clicky before, man. That sounds good, baby. You guys want me to read this? Can I read some of the shit?
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jack Parsons, because his whole thing was, right, he hooked up with L. Ron Hubbard, Crowley, fuck Crowley, by the way, and all these guys that were it was all about sex magic at the end of the day, about being able to connect to the to bring forth the subconscious at that point, at that peak of ecstasy, right, when you're doing the do, and being able to reflect, right, to imprint on... I'm serious, to imprint on the subconscious what you're trying to do, and then, when it comes back down, you forget about it, and it's supposed to come to fruition. But alchemy, right, you're talking about how he was very careful about things, and then obviously you have his death, right? Spoiler alert, he's dead, he died. But that's why I'm not gonna get into it, but that's why I brought up the idea, Gabe, of the homunculi and all that shit, because it ties into this shit. So I don't want to get into that. Continue, Roman, because that's a whole nother episode.
We make a note to have an episode about homunculi, because I've read like a whole bunch of books on that specific topic, which is a fucking crazy one.
Oh, you might have to join us then soon, Thomas, because we're literally planning an episode. I'll send you the details later, but we're working on something right now.
Man, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, dude. This whole community is just the best shit I've ever happened in my entire life. So it's fucking tight. Like, I'm just like, yes. Anyways, this is Fulcanelli, Mystery of the Cathedrals, and how I was visioning this going, right? This reading of this stuff. This stuff is super dense, and so you got, but it's not like it's not it's not intangible, right? But it's dense and if to the woke initiates as we are, right? So fucking stop me anytime you want. I'm just gonna do like 2 pages at a time, because in 2 pages alone there is so much to decode. But if there's something, like, don't be afraid, obviously, like, to just fucking interject.
When was nuclear energy invented? Because this guy's talking about that in the 20s. You said 22. He was writing this shit.
Yeah, I mean, dude. So the Mystery of the Cathedrals is an alchemical work, and the subtitle is the esoteric interpretation of the hermetic symbols of the great work. And that right there is like, esoteric interpretation of the hermetic symbols of the great work. So in my work, the research I'm building and the shit I'm working on is called antiquated transhumanism and resonance architecture. And that's how I found out about Fulcanelli, because I was looking into these buildings that have way more going on than we're led to believe. That I don't think that the pyramids were the last of resonant architecture. I think in the Gothic period and pre-17th century, the societies in the world were working on magnetics and ether physics and all across. So, cathedrals aren't the only type of resonant architecture either, but this book fucking just helps my research a lot in that. And he's basically describes through this whole book is about describing how the Gothic or the Goetic, Goetic, which is really what it is. They're not Gothic cathedrals, they're Goetic cathedrals. And they're cathodes through ether energy that used mercury in the towers. And also the bells were filled with mercury as well. Something else that fucking Hitler was working on was the Nazi bell, right?
Yeah.
Like the Nazi bell, the bell shape.
Yep, and don't forget the word Gotique has the word tech in it.
Exact tech.
You could even twist it into the God tech.
Wow.
I want to throw in too, since you're talking about cathedrals and how they had all these like really innovative properties. There was this quote from, I think it was one of the Peter Levenda series, but he makes this note of that a lot of people go to these cathedrals and look through the stained glass, and they would see colors that they wouldn't see at any other time during their normal lives. So it was also this way of like almost finding like the supernatural abilities that were kind of centralized in this one place. So along with, they wouldn't hear reverberation the same way, they wouldn't hear music the same way, so they would go to these cathedrals and it would literally teleport them to a completely different reality.
That's what I'm talking about, bro. So like there's the only mainstream science that we have that backs up this ancient tech is the science of LSPR, which is light spectrum plasmon resonance. And it proves that the nanoparticles in this changes the plasmon resonance. So when the sun energy hits these windows, the other side of the window has a different frequency that is literally absorbed by the metals and alchemically translated in the atmosphere. Thus, our bodies, which are also conductors, can absorb that in a true healing and transformative way. And then you add in chanting. Every one of these cathedrals generally had a basilica, so it had fucking an organ, right? And that's beautiful. Thomas, can you send me that article or wherever you read that, because like that kind of thank you. Like I have a
Roman. where does the stained glass come in? Like, is that why there's certain colors? Because it's stained. Oh, it's so beautiful, but it's not there by mistake. Does that serve a purpose as well? Because he's talking about seeing a different light spectrum, hearing things different. That's fucking crazy. I never put that together.
The stained glass has so much symbolism, not only in every single stained glass panel. Generally, there's an entire fucking story to be deciphered. But that's one part of the stained glass windows is you have every single one is to be decoded, right? Here's a classic one. Look at that. That's a classic stained glass window. God, I'm terrible at holding the angles. Jesus fucking Christ. How do I move my phone? There we go. There's one.
Hear you, Thomas, you're muted, bro.
I was gonna say I see 333 right there. We've got 3 stars, 3 arrows, and 3 waves.
Yeah.
Yep.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm seeing fire, air, water, earth also.
Oh yeah, and the heart in the center. Yeah.
Nice.
Terrible. And then this is
Oh, that one's not. Doesn't look too good. It's like
it's also not as cool. Yeah. But
like
it's really not
touching kids. It looks like.
Yeah, it's like people getting stabbed and decapitated. It's like not that cool, but
it's telling you that they use children's blood in the glass dyes.
That's crazy.
Okay,
so,
QAnon.
So the symbolism in the stained glass windows goes deep, and so like I said, it can have any of these type of symbolism. But then outside of that, on an alchemical sense, they're all made with nanoparticles of silver and gold. And like using different things and the colors, it's just, and like the chapter I read on Weaving Spiders Welcome went into the color symbolism of it, and so that's a little bit what this is going to go into here. And geez, I drank coffee way too late, bro. I'm so caffeinated. I taking a step out of Gabe's page. He's always drinking coffee on the podcast, and I'm like, I'm gonna start doing that too. So anyways, nothing's my fault. It's everybody else's fault. Okay, here we are. Mystery of Cathedrals by Fulcanelli. Like I said, boys, stop me anytime. We're going. The Cathedral of Paris, like most metropolitan basilicas, is under the invocation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, or Virgin Mother. In France, the people call these churches Notre Dame. In Sicily, they have the even more expressive name of matrices. They are therefore temples dedicated to Mother, matrice, mater, or the matrona in the primitive sense, a word which through corruption means Madonna, my lady, and by extension, Our Lady, or Notre Dame. Let us cross the gate of the porch and begin the study of the facade through the large portal called the central porch, or the judgment porch. The central pillar, which divides the entrance bay into two, offers series of allegorical representations of medieval science. Facing the square, in the place of honor, alchemy is represented by a woman whose forehead touches the clouds. Sitting on a throne, she holds up a scepter in her left hand, a badge of sovereignty, while the right hand supports 2 books, one closed, esotericism, and one open, exotericism. Held between her knees and resting against her chest stands the 9-step ladder, Scala Philosophorium, hieroglyph of the patience that her followers must have. During the 9 successive operations of hermetic labor, patience is the ladder of philosophers, Valois tells us, and humility is the doorway to their garden. For whoever preserves without pride and without envy, God will show mercy. This is the title of the philosophical chapter of the Mutus Liber, the Gothic temple, the frontispiece of this occult Bible with massive stone pages. This imprint, the seal of the secular great work in front of the Christian great work, it could not be better located at the very threshold of the main entrance. Thus, the cathedral appears to us be based on an alchemical science, investigating the transformations of the original substance of the elementary matter, root matter, or mother, for the Virgin Mother stripped of her symbolic veil is nothing other than personification of the primitive substance used to achieve her purposes by creative principle, creator, all that is. This is the meaning, which is very clear, of the singular epithet, reads the Mass Immaculate Conception of the Virgin, whose text reads, "The Lord possessed me at the beginning of his ways. I was formed before many creatures. I was formed before he formed many creatures. I was from all eternity before the earth was created. The abysses were not yet, and already I was conceived. The fountains had not yet come out of the earth. The heavy mass of the mountains had not yet been formed. I was a child before the hills. He had not created the earth, nor the rivers, nor he had established the world on its poles. When he prepared the heavens, I was present. When he surrounded the depths of their bounds and prescribed the inviolable law, when he established the air above the earth, and when he balanced the waters of the fountains, when he enclosed the sea with its limits, and when he imposed the law on the waters so that they would not pass their bounds. When he laid the foundations of the earth, I was with him, and I regulated all things." This is obviously the very essence of things. And indeed, the Litanies teach us that the Virgin is the vase that contains the spirit of things. On a table, the height of the chest of the Magi, Italia tells us that there is one side of the book, or a series of gold pages or plates, the Book of Thoth, and on the other side is a vase full of celestial astral liquor, composed of a third wild honey and 1 part terrestrial water and 1 part celestial water. The secret mystery lies within the vase. The singular Virgin, Virgo Singularis, as the Church expressly designates it, moreover glorified under names that indicate positive origin. It is also called the palm tree of patience, the lily between the thorns, Lilium interspinis, Samson's symbolic honey, Gideon's fleece, the mystical rose, heaven's gate, or the house of gold, etc. The same text still call Mary the seat of wisdom. In other words, the subject of Hermetic science, of universal wisdom. In the symbolism of planetary metals, she is the moon, which receives the rays of the sun and keeps them secretly in her bosom. She is the dispenser of passive substance, which the solar spirit comes to animate. Mary, Virgin, and Mother, therefore represents the form. Elias, the Son, God the Father, is the emblem of the vital spirit. From the union of these two principles results in the living matter, subject to the vicissitudes of the laws of mutation and progression. It is then Jesus, the incarnate spirit of the corporified fire in things that we know here on earth, and the Verb became flesh and dwelt among us. On the other hand, the Bible teaches us that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was the stem of Jesse. Now, the Hebrew word for Jess means fire, the sun, the divinity. To be of the stem of Jesse is therefore to be the race of the sun, of fire. As the origin of matter comes from the solar fire, as we have just seen, the same name Jesus appears to us in its original and heavenly splendor, fire, sun, God. Finally,
Roman, before you go on, is this guy having a mushroom trip, or what's going on there? He's seeing all these things, talking about celestial water and terrestrial water.
He's describing some scientific phenomenon here. Like when there was a mention about the sun radiating off the father and onto the wife's bosom where she retains it. This is talking about how the radiation from the sun is hitting the moon, and the moon absorbs that radiation, which then reflects it to the earth. I mean, this is all encoded in just like mythological thinking. But I mean, if you hear when he says it, you know, the sun's radiating on the wife's bosom, which is the moon shining out onto the earth, and the whole father, mother, earth being the child. And then it talks about, I mean, you can kind of like relate some of this, like the Pythagorean theorem aspects where,
the triangle. Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I mean, the part of it is like very flourished words, but we're talking about math essentially.
Yeah.
What does that picture have a name, Roman? So I can bring it up and screen share it so people can see it.
So this is one of the discs. It's a carving and a piece of art on front of the Notre Dame. Type in the bas relief of the Great Porch of Notre Dame in Paris.
Nice.
So he described it, and there's the 9-step ladder. There's the 2 books, one open, one closed. and then the scepter. And so, like Thomas was saying, that alone, it's all an alchemical scientific understanding. And he's doing right here is describing the fucking entrance of the cathedral. Like we haven't gotten past that part yet.
Yes. So
what was the name you said? In Notre Dame, you said the bas relief of the Notre Dame cathedral.
The bas relief of the Great Porch of the Notre Dame of Paris.
So just today, I learned that an archaic definition for the word great means pregnant. And in this context, I believe it implies that it is pregnant with meaning, that there is a promise of a cipher and more meaning to come out. The scepter, I believe, encodes septenary gematria. In the nine ladder rungs implies ordinal gematria. Those are the two primary principal forms of gematria. The rest you can go to the internet, but I've got a real good head for septenary and ordinal. So I've actually done up a little work here on the word matrix. Let's see. You can see that the M is a 13. You add it together, you get a 4. The A is a 1. And then the tri means 3. The X means to convert it or flip it. It's a mutable X. And when you flip 413, you get 314, the numbers of pi. So the word matrix is a code to do the alchemical process mentally, and you take the pieces and you cook them up in your kiln, and then you put them back together and you get pi. And the beautiful thing about pi is that part you were reading about, it was here before all other plants, before all other aspects of life. And that is true. Pi is like a frequency that makes up the fabric of reality.
Yeah, it's the concept. It is the energy, the vibrational state, the vibratory state of it as an energy before it can take physical form, before it enters whatever type of physical dimension that it is. Yeah, that's fucking crazy.
And it's always fascinating to me too that just the very act of calculating pi is in itself just an infinite stream of energy that you will dedicate forever and ever. So just by looking at the concept of it, you're just opening up another stream for it to flow forever.
So true.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's so crazy. I've never thought about that as the Pythagorean. Wow. Okay. I'm just mind blown. It's hard for me to digest things like that in a moment. So let me continue. Like 2 weeks later, I'm going to be like, have a whole download about it. But anyways, finally in the Averagina, the Virgin is properly called Roots, to mark that she is the principle and the beginning of the whole. Hail roots by which the light shone upon the world. These are reflections suggested by the expressive bas relief that welcomes the visitor under the porch of the basilica. Hermetic philosophy, the ancient Spigyrus art. Welcome him to the Gothic temple, the alchemical temple par excellence, for the entire cathedral is nothing more than a silent but colorful glorification of the ancient science of Hermes, of which it has preserved one of the former craftsmen. Notre Dame of Paris, in fact, has kept its alchemist.
Really
and
quick,
this is
I wanted to point out as you're showing that, the whole fact that it just mentioned how it kind of encaptures this in silence. And if you think about it, if anyone's familiar with the concept of cymatics, which is where you take the vibration of certain frequencies and you see what the visual patterns that they create are. And a lot of the sort of the facades that you see on the fronts of these churches around these windows, they're almost direct correlations to the patterns that you would see in cymatic experiments. So again, this is them encoding, these mathematical formulas into this quote unquote silent, stone to be preserved for all ages.
Fuck, I wish I had my fucking pencil. That's a great note. Absolutely. Because these are, like I said, resonance architecture. Cymatic is the understanding of resonance and vibratory state. And these places are built in such harmony for those reasons.
And again, going to those stained glass, all that is different frequencies, different harmonies.
I'm still
in a visual
shook.
spectrum.
I'm still shook on what you said earlier, Thomas, about how people would interpret everything differently, because don't they preach in these cathedrals? What do they do all these ceremonies and rituals, right, in these cathedrals?
You would go here, right? And this is the only time. I mean, if we're talking back in the day, you didn't have any other outlet to God. There was no concept of talk to God on your own terms. You know, like you could pray to him from your bed, but if you really wanted to get a direct line and make your request known, you had to go through the church as the middleman.
It's a brokered
So-
experience, yeah.
Yeah, so when you go to this church, you're already in a completely different, like an NLP sort of terminology, right? You're in this like weird frame where you're the most susceptible to any bullshit or any like scam someone wants to pull on you, because you're humbled by this kind of like grand experience that you're never going to experience outside this one place. And you're almost programmed, because once you've been here, you know, okay, there's this very definite space in reality that once I enter this, you know, geographic space, my brain switches to a completely different way of thinking, where I'm seeing colors I've never seen, I'm hearing things I've never seen, I'm being introduced to concepts that don't come up when I'm going back home and I'm like, you know, pulling weeds and I'm doing, you know, manual labor. So just the fact that you go here and it's this very cerebral experience that takes you completely out of the physical plane. Not to discount that some of the people realize like, oh, I've got these peasants in this completely, you know, feverish state of mind. Like I can tell them anything and they'll believe me. So, you know, there's good and bad to some of that. And I think that's where that esoteric and exoteric comes in, that you walk in there and you see the cathedral, you know, you see the closed book and the open book. The open book's for those people that it's their first time. They're the rubes, right? They're falling for everything on the first time. But the people that see that closed book, they realize like, oh, there's more to this. I need to not just, you know, listen to what's being presented to me out in the open, but I need to kind of like look in and find everything for myself.
Yeah, one time I was listening to a Manly P. Hall lecture as I was pulling weeds, and he started talking about pulling weeds, the people in your life that don't need to be there. And I was like, holy shit, as I'm pulling a weed from my lawn. He's like, you need to pull the weeds out of your life. I was like, oh, okay, daddy. Okay, Daddy Manly P. Hall, you know. Senpai.
Senpai. That's so funny. Something too that's important. Yeah, like you were saying, Thomas, that's 100% true. You know, and especially in modern age, especially after the 17th and 18th century, when the major kind of flip and transition was happening. Because at one point, I believe that there was a society that knew about alchemical and hermetic prophecies and things, and they would go there in harmony as a society, as a community, and they would raise their frequency and raise their vibratory state. But then something happened, multiple wars, jealousy, anger, you know, the rise for power and the switch of everything. And then afterwards they said, we know the power of these cathedrals, these cathode rules, the rules of the cathode, the energy, how to encapsulate the energy and to contort the energy of these people. If we bring them here and then feed them false prophets, they will in fact endure it and bring it into their lives and have it be the most important thing. So as a form of control to basically, you know, that's MK Ultra all day. That's brainwashing, because you are in fact, they're going into a place where alchemically and oracally their auras change.
I would argue a lot easier, because in MK Ultra in the 50s, they at least had to trick people and hide the fact that they were, you know, abusing and traumatizing them. If we're going to, you know, hundreds of years before, everyone was just in a constant state of trauma daily without any government intervention, you know.
Yeah, that's facts, dude.
Illuminati confirmed.
I want to go deep into MK Ultra. We haven't been able to do that on our show because, you know, Rising from the Ashes, we're mainly like, you know, we try to go history, so we go like way back, you know, and it's like I love MK Ultra. It's one of the most fascinating topics to me. That whole time period is just so wild, and like all the deep underground military bases and Montauk, and oh god, I love that shit, dude.
So, you know, speaking of MK Ultra, these places, but maybe perhaps this is how religion was able to spread and withhold itself, because you have these people experiencing this other state of consciousness. So they go, this has to be real. This has to be some shit that I can't understand. So what these people are preaching about or talking about or whatever, this is real. So how Thomas is saying, this cerebral experience of being in this area of resonance, because we know cymatics affects molecules, right? 5G affects molecules. Certain frequencies affect molecules on a deep level. So it's pretty, it makes a lot of sense to me that they were able to keep the gig up for such a long time.
Let me jump in here too I know this is jumping between books, but this fits so perfectly into exactly what we're talking about.
Boop,
This is
fit it in, weave it.
This is from chapter 2 of La Sorcerie, The Witch of the Middle Ages. And the chapter is titled Why the Middle Ages Fell into Despair. And I'm just gonna read, I kind of like have some cutout quotes here, but it goes perfectly what we're talking about here. So the chapter starts out, imitate and all will go well, rehearse and copy. This is the way to true childhood, which quicklets the heart of man, which leads back to its fresh and fruitful springs. In the world that is to make us young and childlike, I see at first nothing but the tokens of age, only cunning, slavishness, want of power. And he goes on to say, we have just the same literary fall as happened in India from Brahmanism to Buddhism, the twaddling flow of words after a noble inspiration, books copying from books, churches copying from churches, until they cannot so much as copy, they pillage from each other. They have no notion of forming a new society or fertilizing the old. Copying from the monks of the East, they wanted simply servants, at first, themselves barren race of monkling workmen. It was in spite of the family and renewing itself of the world. And then he says, if the monks wrote it was the people that made them, this young growth might throw out some leaves and flowers from the nooks and crannies of an old Roman ruin turned into a covenant. But not assuredly did these ever first arise. Its roots go deep into the ground. Listen and obey. You are forbidden to invent, to create. No more legends, no more saints. We've had enough of them. You're forbidden to introduce new chants in your worship. Inspiration is not allowed. The martyrs that you would bring to light should stay modestly within their tombs, waiting to be recognized by the church. So this is kind of showing you of this, like, think the way the church wants to think. Keep all of your creative and your innovative thoughts outside. Save that for when you go to church, and we'll give you that creative, innovative energy, and leave it there. Like, that's our job. You go back out and do, your thing. And this was a very much a popular, consensus. This wasn't just some kind of like rantings. This was essentially how it operated.
And it's funny, Thomas, that I told you, I'm like, you were like, I'm going to read the whole book. And I'm like, nah, I'm only going to read these bits and pieces. And now you're like telling me all this crazy shit in that book.
I want to throw, we're not going to get into it, but the later aspects of this book gets into the dynamics of Jesuits and how the Jesuits and the King of France threw the Templars under the bus because he was in debt. But then it traces the lineage of the Jesuits' rise to power and then fall from power, which I wasn't even thinking about, but I'm totally obsessed with Jesuit history because of the Bavarian Illuminati connections. So yeah, this book
Illuminati confirmed.
For a whole bunch of different reasons. and I mentioned when I first started reading this, it was kind of a pleasure to read because the guy that wrote it is very snarky. It's written in a very like a straw man way. He's like, well, here's what the church of the Middle Ages was thinking, and he paints this like really glorious straw, the listen and obey, you're forbidden to invent, like that's him straw manning the church of the Middle Ages. But yes. I just love the way that he writes that. It's very like a satirical kind of hit piece.
Nice.
Written in
what book is that?
It's called La Sorcerie, The Witch of the Middle Ages.
Oh yeah, the one you read from earlier, dude. Yeah, no, that's super good. I'm gonna have to get my hands on that. There's not enough. I need more money, baby. I need more money for books.
Well, this one's free. You can find this one at archive.org, totally free.
Nice.
And I'm hoping that we might maybe set a trend here that all of the books that we review should hopefully be available, public domain or free in some way.
Yeah. I want to bring a little piece of what the spiders have gifted me with, some ancient technology that we've kind of dug up, and it's going to tie everything together we just said, going all the way from the cathedrals, the Notre Dame Cathedral specifically, the Knights Templar in France in that battle with the king, all the way to MK Ultra, like Juan was saying. I can tie this all in with this amazing occulted part of that history. and that is that Jacques Molay was having his initiates go through this ritual underground in France at the time, and that ritual was revealed to involve some incredibly dark initiatory practices. The first one was to walk upon a cross, to walk upon a crucifix, and also to spit on, some say to urinate on the crucifix, to defile the symbol of the Catholic Church. And then they were prompted to speak blasphemy on the Christ. And it was actually the initiates, if they were prompted, if they could decode the prompt, they were actually not supposed to blaspheme verbally. And that was the point in the initiation process where they were supposed to say no. So sometimes they're testing you on where you will draw the line. And that line in the sand was that your words can defile you. You can walk on the Christ, you can piss on the cross, but your words are what defile you. And so that was part of the initiation process.
That's so interesting because there is a correlation in Freemasonry that's kind of like that, where once you go far enough along, it stops being just rote memorization of like repeating these things that you memorized, and the questions that you're asked, one of them will like it'll actually like ask you to do something you're not supposed to do, and that is they are strictly to weed out the people that aren't critically thinking and processing information. Everyone's had that test in school where it's like 20 things, and the last question says like only do this last thing.
Right.
To make sure everyone read it all.
That's right.
You would know that, wouldn't you, Thomas?
I had a feeling that would vibe with you, Tom. Yep, I had a feeling. So after that, they were led into another chamber. And this is a smaller room, a confined space, and it has candles lit on the walls. And I believe that there were substances in the candles that were of mind-altering value. Yeah. And
that's old alchemy right there, my brother.
You got it. And this is crazy. They would bring out a cat, and the initiate would be prompted to kiss the ass of the cat. And this is some weird shit, because this is super weird shit. The cat is a known source of a parasite called toxoplasmosis.
Yep.
Holy fucking
in Brazil.
shit.
In Brazil, people go. That's why people go crazy in Brazil.
Right.
That's the whole cat butthole thing.
It's the whole cat butthole thing. It is so crazy. And
The
it's
Eye of
all over,
Horus.
you got it. It's all over pop culture. Like they're making a joke of it on South Park. It's like really getting proliferated because they want to diffuse it. They want to make it like, the things that are that profane are disguising the profound. And they want us to laugh it off and not talk or go any further on what it really means. And the fact of the matter is toxoplasmosis has certain side effects that I believe that have certain effects on one personality type and a different effect on other personality types. And this was essentially like biometric scanning to see almost like your DNA, to check your DNA. So certain blood types will respond by becoming passive. They'll become fearful. They'll become timid. Their eyes will vasoconstrict. But other blood types, their eyes will vasodilate, and they actually might get eroticized and have an erotic response. But when you look into toxoplasmosis, it has some very interesting side effects. It on different people. Some people will become subject to suggestion. They become very likely to take risks. They will conceivably, you could tell them to go take a risky mission, a suicide mission, and they're down for the job. They'll go do it at the drop of a hat. But other personality types, some would say blood types, some would say Rh negatives, theoretically. And we're getting in dangerous territory there, but some people would say Rh negatives. They'll be like, nah, fuck that. I ain't doing that shit. And that is a way of separating the wheat from the chaff. But another side effect, and this is where it gets real weird. It turns out there's a whole city in Korea that
Yes.
is overrun with feral cats. In that population who lives with these feral cats, they have prolific toxoplasmosis infection rates, and there's a huge percentage of the population has gender dysphoria,
Yeah.
and they lose their sense of sexual orientation, so to say, or this whole parasite
That
thing
goes into like godly androgyny, or like the divine androgynous. So like when you get up to a certain spiritual level, like like the really old alchemists like Basil Valentine and
Yes.
things like that like all mysteriously vanish, that
Right.
live to be a couple hundred years old, and then they're not like man or woman, they're androgynous.
It gets into some weird shit. And so now everybody think of Yaldabaoth is a cat's head
Mm-hmm.
with a snake coming out of the head of the cat. Well, it turns out toxoplasmosis, the shape of that neurotoxin, it has a long tail. It's the word toxo means bow. So it's like a drawn bow. It's like large at the end. It looks like your spliff, homie. Yep. And so that is actually depicted in the Matrix when they put that parasite in his belly button.
Yes.
That is a toxoplasmosis that they're programming him with. And he has to, one of his initiation is to have it extracted from him when he gets in that car and they suck that thing out of his belly. That's totally indicating a toxoplasmosis.
Does that mean the Cats musical remake was perhaps one of the sequels, the unofficial sequel to the Matrix series?
Well, I'd be interested to see if they use cats in the Templar initiations, because we know that they were worshiping Baphomet, right? And people are more susceptible to certain things.
Right.
But it would make me think if they did. I don't believe they used cats in their rituals, did they? Because I've never read anything
Rosicrucian?
like that. No, the
Knights
Knights
Templar.
Templar.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the French Knights Templar did. So that initiation ritual, it got put in, the king, he sent in his spies, and his spies reported on the kissing of the ass of the cat, and the king put the Knights Templar on blast. He sent letters to the Pope, who he didn't get along with, but he sent them anyways, and he sent letters up to the King of England, and he said,
it didn't hurt that he was basically owed all of his fortune and then some to the Templars at this time.
Yep, he was taking out his debts. He was wiping the books clean for sure. So he put them on blast, and they rounded up Templars in all directions. The Pope put out a decree called Vox in Excelso, which is the voice from on high. And this is interesting because Stan Lee has that Excelsior. It's like his catchphrase.
He's a major initiate, yo. We all know that.
Down. So then the public found out that the cat's ass is like a dark ritual this is the beginning of the Inquisition, and all the people and all across the landscape, all out in the countryside, they rounded up all the cats and they started burning them. And this is so fucked up because the toxoplasmosis just goes into the smoke. And the people were breathing in fumigated toxoplasmosis. And the next thing you know, you got famine, you got war, you've got plagues, you've got the four horsemen riding across the landscape, and revelations came upon the masses at that time.
It was like Burning Man.
Yeah, yes.
The Wicker Man, yeah.
Yes.
I was like, well, Burning Man, just getting fucked up in the middle of nowhere, burning a bunch of, toxins, and
it's crazy. It's
crazy.
So,
and this is why the Egyptians regarded cats too, right? They like worshiped cats because they thought cats were. I wonder. I looked up the symptoms. I didn't see anything about hallucinations, but maybe perhaps you have vision problems in children, intellectual disability, developmental delays, hearing loss. You have seizures, crossed eyes. You get that pink eye, boy. You get jaundice. You get skin rash. So, I'd be interested because if these people do these things and they start to see it immediately, right? Some of the effects immediately, they go, "Oh, this has to be real. This has to be some shit that's real." So they start believing it. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. Holy shit, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You know something that I just completely irrelevant, but I want to see what you guys thought. Because there's a link between Ireland and Egypt, right? Ancient Celtics and ancient Egypt. And I was thinking the word Irish is really close to ISIS.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know why. I just brought that up. But I just thought that was
No, that's
interesting.
great. Yep. So the Egypts were really into the cats in a crazy way, and there's a there for sure because and this is kind of getting into some of that old world races kind of thing, and this is such a rabbit hole in and of itself. But essentially, the phonetic sound of the Urd, they're related to the cat. It's a lineage of people who venerated the cats. And without going too in depth about it, you're totally right that the ISIS is sometimes related to a Sekhmet or Bastet, and depicted as a cat-headed goddess. This is a good story. Constantine was doing battle against Egyptian forces, allegedly. And so he told his soldiers on the front line, because he knew the Egyptians were superstitious about cats, he told his soldiers on the front line to paint images of cats on their shield. And the Egyptians, when they got close enough to see what these depictions were on the shield, they wouldn't even point their weapons towards the cat. So
That's super fucking funny.
Psychological warfare. Fuck them.
Yeah. They all got weak in the knees because they didn't even want to, piss off Sekhmet. And I'll point out, so if you use the word the skull and bones, TSAB, in reverse is Bast.
Oh, wow.
And Bast is a pet name for the cat goddess.
Oh, wow.
Oh, I was thinking like Basque.
bones.
I was thinking like Basque, the ancient land. Like that's because Basque is really interesting as like a.
Yeah, you're getting into that Rh negative.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
The Basques are heavy on the Rh negative. So this is a cool. While I'm ranting on the cat thing, I'll just bring this forward because this gives it even more. It kind of makes it noble again, brings it out of the underground and puts it into like a more righteous context. But the Jubilee Palace of Ethiopia is guarded by lions, and it has been for like hundreds of years. They've had lions living up in the courtyard at the Jubilee Palace.
Isn't this where the original Bible is supposed to be hidden?
Yeah, man. This is some real true royalty, holding to very old ancient tradition. So
imagine the toxoplasmosis from a lion asshole, lion butthole. You should be like super hit.
You got it. That's exactly what's going on. So
fuck.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, man. So if you want to get access,
Yowie
wowie. Yeah. So if you want to get access to the king, you got to go through this courtyard that is just saturated with the lion level toxoplasmosis. And when you come into the presence of the king, you will either be weak in the knees and scared from the pheromonal response of being around the apex predator, or if you're of a select breeding stock, you'll come in the presence of the king and you'll stand tall and present yourself.
Oh, bro,
initiation.
That's fucking nuts, dude.
And this gives the courtiers, the ladies of the court, it gives them the signal that you're good breeding stock. And that is because if you impregnate one of the ladies of the court, the baby will not die from exposure to toxoplasmosis. You got the right stuff, baby. And your baby will come correct and live the full 9 months in the womb. Because Tiger King. This is why Rafiki holds up the Babylon, the baby lion. Rafiki is exalting the lion over himself.
No, that's Disney. No way they would put that in there, dude.
Right? At the initiation scene, at the opening scene up on top
Bro.
of Pride Rock, which is
Being initiated, he's sniffing cat butthole right on
he's
the top.
sniffing that cat ass. And
On
he's
top of Mount Meru.
Yeah, he's on top of the seeing eye of Providence with the bird flying above like the all-seeing eye.
My notes, sniffing cat ass. There you go.
You got it, man.
Honestly, I'm gonna watch that opening king because that's super interesting.
Yeah, it is really something. And I don't like proliferating this very much, this kind of information, because one thing I'm not down with, and if I'm going to talk about it, I should put this disclaimer out there. I'm not down with the idea that, that we come from animals, and that some people are related to monkeys and other people are from the lions. I'm not down with that. I think that's a bunch of bullshit. I think that's some old superstition that they're adhering to. And I don't like to proliferate it without just extracting some of the truth out of the superstition from that, from those rituals. And I just think that's important to mention. I think, they say that Rh positive are related to the rhesus macaque.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's some bullshit. I don't think that means that men come from monkeys. I think that means that some fucking dude probably knocked up a monkey somewhere.
Trying to sniff some monkey ass.
So
the monkey.
Right. So it doesn't mean we're related to monkeys. It means that particular breed of monkeys might be related to humans. They flip that shit. They invert it. And that's some social Darwinistic bullshit.
Evolutionary-wise, I don't think we came from monkeys at all. And spiritually, I think maybe there's an energetic central point that we might all share. But on a physical evolution, I don't believe that shit either.
Right.
So where does Bigfoot play a part in this? What is Bigfoot? What happens if you sniff Bigfoot ass? What happens then?
You disintegrate.
That is one of the underlying phenomena with Bigfoot. They say you smell it before you see it.
Yeah, the skunk ape. Yeah. And Thomas he's in the same town I am. He can confirm this. Up north of us, there was this rich guy that bought some rhesus macaques, and he put them on an island. And he put them on an island, right? Because he had all this money and wanted exotic animals. The monkeys swam away from the island and up into Florida, right? Into Central Florida. And so he bought 3 more. Put those on there. It was 6, and then he bought 6 more. Those 6 swam out. So now there's an infestation of rhesus macaques. Now, not only that, but these monkeys, these rhesus macaques, they have this type of herpes when they scratch or bite somebody that's lethal 90% of the time. And so people are going to these national parks here and these preserves, and they're getting attacked by these monkeys, and they're getting encephalitis, and their brains are swelling, and they're fucking dying from these monkeys because they're getting herpes from them, dude. Here in Florida, in Central Florida. That's a fucking true story.
That's disgusting.
Damn, that is trippy. Okay.
What a dick. Whoever that guy that fucking did that. That's a dick move.
That is a dick move. Man, you put that kind of triggers a lot of interesting thoughts. Like the idea that of sacrificing monkeys, laboratory lab monkeys,
Mm-hmm.
And there is a long history of, the regulation of that process. And in certain places you can do it, in certain places you can't. Sometimes you got to go into off seas to international territory to do monkey experiments.
Fauci was running monkey experiments as well too.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
What'd you call him earlier?
Oh yeah, what's his name?
Thanos
Thanos Fauci.
His
and
mom,
Thanos Faustus.
Yeah, his mom's name, her full name was Eugenia, as in
Oh
eugenics.
my god. Yeah.
Oh god, I thought it was gonna be Baphomet or something, but that's even better.
Eugenia Lillian Abyss, Abys.
Wait, Lillian.
So you've got Lilith, which is a queen of monsters from the abyss, and you got eugenics. Like her name is just very telling.
Roman, can you continue reading that chapter, and
Yeah,
then
it's
we'll
only a half
summarize
a
that
page, so.
and bring this episode to a conclusion because we got plenty on the table.
All right, yeah, I know, right, dude? We fucking blew it up, boys. Thank you so
We
much.
went
for
from
that.
from
Sweet.
cathedrals to cat assholes. I don't know how the fuck that happened, but it happened.
CAT.
CAT.
And if
Yep.
you look real close at some of those cathedral windows, they kind of have this starfish pattern.
Illuminati confirmed.
Oh yeah, shotgun. Totally. It's a
Oh
trip.
my, that's
It's a
crazy. The
trip
brown
right
rose window. God. Okay. Also, hey, top of tomatoes. When you take the stem off the tomato, also looks like a cat butthole.
Man, if this tomato don't stop, I'm about to give it to it.
Woo! All right. Here we are. Finally, the Averagina, the Virgin, is properly called Root to mark that she is the principle in the beginning of the whole. Hail Root, by which the light is shone upon the world. These reflections suggested by the expressive bas relief that welcomes a visitor under the porch of Basilica, Hermetic philosophy, and ancient Spigyrus art. Welcome him to the Gothic temple, the alchemical temple par excellence. For the entire cathedral is nothing more than a silent but colorful glorification of the ancient science of Hermes, of which it has preserved one of the former craftsmen. Notre Dame of Paris is in fact kept its alchemist. And I showed you guys that little, it's a sketch of an actual carving. This guy is the alchemist of Notre Dame Cathedral. That's his name, right?
Got
You'll
the
go
wizard
there.
hat on there.
Yeah, he's got the Phrygian cap. And you go here and see him to this day if you go to Paris. If driven by curiosity or to enjoy the stroll on a summer's day, you climb the spiral staircase that leads to the upper parts of the building. Walk slowly the path, dug like a gutter, at the top of the second gallery. Arriving near the center line of the majestic building, at the corner of the northern tower, you will see, in the middle, a procession of chimeras, the striking relief of the great old stone man. It is him. It is the alchemist of Notre Dame, wearing a Phrygian cap, an attribute of the adept, carelessly placed on his long hair and thick curls. The scholar, dressed in his light laboratory cape, rests one hand on the railing while caressing his abundant hand, silky beard on the other. He does not meditate, he observes. His eye is fixed, the gaze of a strange acuity. Everything in the philosopher's attitude reveals the extreme emotion. The curvature of the shoulders, the forward projection of the head and chest betray, indeed, the strongest surprise. In truth, this petrified hand comes to life. Is this an illusion? You think it was shaken. What a splendid figure it is that the old master who scrutinizes questions, anxious and attentive, the evolution of mineral life, then finally contemplates, dazzled, the wonder that only his faith could reveal to him, and how poor the modern statues of our scientists. Whether cast in bronze or carved in marble near the venerable image, so powerful and realistic in its simplicity. And it has a note here. That's the end of the chapter, but it has a note down here. The Phrygian cap is worn by San Calut, constituted a kind of protective talisman. In the midst of the revolutionary hecatombs, it was a distinctive sign of the initiates. In this analysis, yeah. Oh, that's the alchemist all day right there, bro.
Yeah, the Flammarion engraving. It reminds me of this, where he's peeking through that veil, baby. Just peeking through.
I love that. I love Hermetic art, dude. Like, that shit is my favorite. Yeah, I mean, that's it. That's not really actually, like, we actually went through the meat of that chapter in the first part. That was kind of like just describing a statue, which wasn't that relevant. But, you know, this guy he's like, look at that. They kept the scientist. I'm a fucking scientist. So that's cool. But other than that, there wasn't a lot of decoding to do in that second half. But yeah, man, I think we should do this again. You know, like, I need help decoding this book more, you know, so this is good or something.
Yeah, no, that was great. I really enjoyed it. And, you know, it's awesome how you go from one thing to the next to the other, and then you just jump around. I love doing that. That's Fulcanelli and the Chemical Revival. Is that the right book?
No, I have 2 copies of that. I'll give you one. That's a book written by someone else. Don't buy that one. Buy The Mystery of the Cathedrals. I made the mistake of buying the one you were talking about. I bought 2 copies of it. But it's really fucking cool. It just has a list of all these famous alchemists, basically, from the 19th and 20th century. And it talks about how Fulcanelli was kind of like the leader of the alchemical revival of that time, because, you know, he obviously loved the initiate flame, right? The secrecy of this old world way, because he was born in 1880 or something. So he, you know, saw, like, he saw that the way the world was going, the New World Order was fully on ploy in the 1800s. I mean, basically since the creation of America, like, let's be honest with each other, it's a fucking test tube country for all the fucking bullshit that is. I mean, you know, like, it was created for setting the New World Order in place. I mean, it's hermetic on its own. Oh my God. Yep. Nice, dude. Yeah.
That's
see,
like
they got the good pictures in there.
Jacob's ladder right there. You got the ladder.
Yeah, some 9 steps.
Staff. You have what looks like. Is this a book? What is this? A book here?
Bro, that's the picture from earlier. That's the 2 books. It's the open and the close.
Oh.
Yeah, man.
But you couldn't see because
the closed one is hidden behind the open book.
Oh, yeah, right here.
So most of the people that walk up to this, they see the open book and they just like, oh, there's the information I need. Read it and go away. Whereas it takes, you know, it takes you to further to almost like ignore that open book and keep going further until you find that closed book.
Right.
And you know, I see that ladder is like, there's the alchemist. Look at that. That's a really cool statue, actually. It's like a ladder, right? That says, I'm open. Like, this is open source. You can climb this. Like, I know the number 9
that crown
in the
chakra,
ladder.
the crown. It goes up to his head. So I mean, that's the Christ consciousness, if you will. That you climb up through the initiations in order to go to the top or whatever, and then you have is he sitting on a throne? Yeah, he's sitting on a throne too. On top of that, he's sitting on a chair. Look at that.
This is virgin. This is a lady, by the way.
Oh,
it's a lady.
Yeah.
Don't misgender.
Yeah, you fucking asshole. You fucking piece of shit.
Them.
One thing I see encoded in the 1 book open, 1 book closed is there are, I consider public and private to be 2 pillars in their own right. And there are many aspects of the 2 pillars, but definitely something to think about. One is public that you can see, and the closed one is private.
That's hermetic as fuck.
Yeah, and some would also maybe say that it alludes to 2 different forms of court. That there's the public court that everybody is dealing with, and then there's a higher form of law that only the initiated have access to a higher form of jurisdiction.
That's the teacher's guide in the background there.
Right.
Nice. I was going to say one. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that there's a documentary that I know of, because when I was in college, our art teacher like made us watch it like 3 times, but it's called Houses of Mystery, The Mysteries of the Cathedrals, and it's essentially just like an hour-long documentary about this exact book. I don't know if you'll be even able to find it. I looked it up on IMDb, and it's almost like a ghost page, but it's there. It's from the year 2000. Houses of Mystery. Yeah, so check it out.
That's fucking tight, dude. Wow, I'm gonna have to look that up. I would love to do my slideshow with you, Thomas, on this, and like do the presentation and have your. Because you seem to have a lot of kind of information or like fun different stuff that will help web it.
He's one of the
Illuminati confirmed.
Okay. So you gotta be careful with this one, dude.
Let me get some cement, man. Let me get some little foundation built here, bro. Help me build this shit up, yo. Shit ain't easy. But that one thing I was to say, Juan, real quick before we sign off. I know.
No, you're good, bro.
But you got that book open, dude. Read the fucking chapter about the Black Virgin. That shit blew my mind. These deep underground bases of the cathedrals hold these statues that reveal that the original intent and use of this. And I fucking love that shit, dude. That shit is so tight, bro.
Yeah, you had some shit on that where they found a statue of like a Jesus Christ type of character, but it was underground.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking wild. It makes me think of Game of Thrones when they go underneath the crypt and they got the statues of everybody there. Like that same type of thing.
Oh yeah, I've never watched Game of Thrones. I need to though.
Bro, Game of Thrones. I want to this was before like I awakened, awakened. And I want to rewatch it again just to see all the symbolism because obviously, it's HBO, so it's got to be some sort of thing. But these ancients back then, it was all about alchemy. It was all about symbols because they understood, right? They put these things at the very front. So when people would pull up, they'd be like, all right, I'm here to do whatever. Oh, wait a minute. So there's more to this, but I see that as a two-edged sword because I think that can be dangerous because you're going to have a slave who's trying to, this peasant who's going to try and be like, okay, so I want to awaken myself. I want to climb that ladder, the initiations, and become something more.
Well, throw a part of this too wasn't just them trying to be sneaky and kind of keep it elitist. It was cause like the quotes I was reading from before, the church didn't want you thinking in new and innovative ways. So this was a way to encode that information and tell other people like, hey, like we've got the goods here. If you've got the eyes to see it more or less, then you can come here and study and learn from us. And that was just the way that they kind of had to do that so that they could stay and like keep their secrets in public, but also keep them in secret.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I watched one of the Spider-Man's Homecoming the other day because we're about to do some Spider-Man decodes coming soon. And I'm thinking to myself, I know that the military-industrial complex like screens these scripts. They make sure you got to fill a quota with like at least 5 American flags subliminally hidden in the background per movie.
It's absolutely true. You have to get their authority to use guns or tanks or anything. You have to contact the military. So their involvement in as Hollywood is confirmed.
Yeah, big time. But I like to think, just for my own sake, this is maybe me making excuses to even watch this bullshit. But I like to think that they're slipping shit under that radar for those who have the eyes to see. And they're like working in something that the military industrial complex misses, and that there are conflicting agendas being expressed in the same medium of entertainment. Just something I'd like to.
As long as there's missiles that get 5 to 12-year-olds cheering for explosions in war, then the military-industrial complex, they're good. They'll sign off on that shit.
Right.
You can throw in all the sacred knowledge you want. Just make sure those 12-year-olds like shit blowing up.
Yep. And something else, another part of the spell that I'd like to point out is that some sort of costume is going to give you superpowers. That is the fundamental mindfuck of all the superheroes is, oh, if you put on this badge and you wear this Batman belt, now you got superpowers.
You can't know my identity, though. I'm going to have all these powers, but you can't know my identity.
There's that public and the private. You got it. Yep. All the liability goes on the public. And all the anonymity is for the private. Good point, man. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, I really enjoyed this. Look at this guy.
FBI, open up!
Yeah, you better open up, bro. So, one more time for the listeners, Thomas, where can they find you? Then Gabe, then Roman. Share with the listeners right now, and for those, this will be later on the RSS feed as well.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. This was awesome. ParanoidAmerican.com. Go to Amazon, just search for Paranoid American. Got a bunch of coloring books, comic books, all kinds of cool stuff. And then Paranoid American on Instagram.
Nice. Yeah, Slick Dissident on YouTube. That's my channel. And you catch me on the Weaving Spiders Saturdays, and on Wednesdays we do a flow state where we read books and do art. Homie Romy's been over there with us a couple times.
Oh,
Juan,
I gotta get in on that.
That's you guys got to come on over. Bring the goods. We can make it a 2.0 of what we started here for sure. So that's where I hang out. Also, I'm on the Interverse with Chance Garten pretty regularly. So that's where you find me.
Roman?
Rising from the Ashes podcast, anywhere you get podcasts, wherever that's streamed. We started doing monthly topics, so we'll dive into topic a month. This month is Atlantis, Lemuria, Lost Continents. We just released a new episode with author Marco Vigato. cool motherfucker. If you guys are into, I mean, obviously, everybody loves Atlantis shit. This is gonna be great.
I'm gonna be on there, bro. I'm gonna be on the round table for Atlantis.
You already know, baby. Yip, 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 yip. Tight. Thank you, guys.
So
Thomas, it was great to meet you, brother.
Yeah, likewise.
yeah, you got to be careful with this one, Roman, because he's one of them. I'm treating him with precautions, so he's my co-host. But until further,
those white gloves.
That's right.
Bro, I'm finna find a lodge, man. I ain't trying to hide no more, dude. Like I'm with Thomas, bro. I might try to sign up, man.
Illuminati confirmed.
So not allowed to solicit anymore, so you got to go and knock on their door if you're interested.
That's right.
Okay.
Make sure to follow me on social media at the Juan Podcast everywhere. YouTube. Make sure for the listeners in the audience now to like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for everyone showing up. I really had a lot of fun, and we should do this again. This was a really solid group, and it's just amazing how we can come together from just texts of information and, bring forth all these crazy ideas. So,
yeah, brother.
Can I get a
thank you, everybody. Love you guys, and until next time.
Wake up.